Support comes from ServiceNow. We're for people doing the creative work they actually want to do. That's why this ad was written and read by a real person and not AI. You know what people don't want to do? Boring, busy work. Now with AI agents built into the ServiceNow platform, you can automate millions of repetitive tasks in every corner of your business, IT, HR, and more, so your people can focus on the work that they want to do. That's putting AI agents to work for people. It's your turn. Visit servicenow.com.
At T-Mobile, our critical mission is providing unparalleled 5G coverage for when connectivity is mission critical. Introducing T-Priority, America's best 5G network experience for first responders, even in times of congestion. More capacity, faster speeds, better coverage. T-Priority from T-Mobile, built for tomorrow's emergencies, ready today. Discover more at t-priority.com.
For qualifying organizations on eligible rate plans, coverage not available in some areas and may be impacted by emergencies.
Atheists, agnostics, long-haired weirdos, short-haired weirdos, vandals, hooligans.
The government, hug the government, love the government, hug the government, love the government, hug the government.
Welcome to The Politics Guys, a place for bipartisan, rational, and civil debate on American politics and policy.
Hello, and welcome to The Politics Guys midweek show. Midweek show? Did I say midweek? I'm kind of midweek. That's sort of my sense of being right now. I'm Jay Carson, filling in for Mike Baranowski. And with me today is Justin Holmes, professor of political science at the University of Northern Iowa. Welcome, Justin.
Hey, good to be here.
And we've got some fun things on tap for us this week that we couldn't quite get to at the regular show. First, talking about sort of the perils of trying to scrub DEI, the good, the bad, and how this can be somehow ugly. And then I think we'll also talk about Ukraine and the chances for peace and the sort of ceasefire, sort of peace-ish negotiation that President Trump is working on getting done. So, Justin, we'll lead off. Tell us what's going on with the Department of Defense's efforts to scrub DEI.
Scrub DEI. So, yeah, there's been sort of people noticing, people that follow these things, sort of a disappearing of a lot of historical documents, websites about historical events, etc. Anything that can be flagged as DEI. Sort of the more infamous one was the scrubbing of a website about the Enola Gay. Oops. That apparently has been restored. But in recent weeks, we have seen sort of the demise of a website for the Navajo code talkers from World War II, Jackie Robinson's military service. The one that was just popped up today, there was an article about B. Arthur and her time in the Marines in World War II. And that basically,
And there's Maud, yes.
And then there's Maud. So before she was Maud, she was a Marine.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
despite the website, I didn't know that, but yeah.
Yeah, she was a truck driver and a dispatcher, apparently, over in Europe. So anyway, the kind of official statement on this is that, hey, these are DEI things because, hey, they recognize people for achievements, first women, first Native American sorts of things, et cetera. But a lot of critics have said, hey, this is a pretty weird reading of kind of DEI policy that we're just going to disappear anything relating to women, people of color, Maud, for God's sake. So, yeah, I don't know. I've got thoughts. You've probably got thoughts. Have at it.
So as I understand, a lot of this has been restored. For example, the Jackie Robinson webpage, and I believe the Navajo Code Talkers too, with the Pentagon saying that this is a mistake. Now, I've got a couple thoughts. I mean, the one that the argument, not the argument, the explanation that's being made is that because the way some of these sites were labeled within the administration, that they had the letters DEI were added to the URL, and then in sort of very efficient fashion, the administration said, well, we're going to take out every website that has the DEI label attached to it. So in the one sense, you can argue, well, the problem is this was bad labeling in the first place. The other thing that springs to mind, and I don't necessarily have the evidence to support this yet, but there's often what's called malicious compliance, where where folks overdo things in order for effect. And, we've seen that in, for example, the, so-called school book bans and that sort of thing. This, to me, appears at this point, it is just they're using a blunt instrument, and anything with that DEI label was getting axed automatically, and now it's getting fixed. But it troubles me for a number of reasons. One, I am a longtime, strong, and vocal opponent of DEI, because to me, what that typically means in most instances is elevating someone or judging them foremost on the basis of their race or the color of the skin rather than the content of their character. And these examples seem to fly in the face of what I see as the big problem with DEI, right? I think it's absolutely entirely appropriate that the Defense Department and Major League Baseball and whoever else, right? But it's the Defense Department who's got the website we're talking about, honor Jackie Robinson, not because of his race or solely because of his race, because he was a great American, right? And in addition to what he did for baseball and for our society, he also served his country. So I think that's, to me, it's Jackie Robinson is sort of the antithesis of what DEI has come to mean. And the same could be said for the Navajo Code Talkers, right? Again, they're being celebrated not because they're Navajo, but because of the service they provided during the war. And likewise, B. Arthur. I'll B. Arthur to a lesser extent. I don't know that we can say that B. Arthur really helped us win the war, but she served her country honorably and went on to have a great and comedic career in advancing feminism, right? So I guess this is something that frustrates me as someone who very much wants to see DEI gone, is that it's claiming these I don't know, it's knocking out sort of what should be put up in place of DEI, if you follow me.
Right. Yeah, I think there's a lot of questions that all of this raises for me. I will say the Pentagon press secretary in the wake of the Jackie Robinson, they did eventually restore it, but it was basically a very hostile, take on DEI, and that we're just going to remove DEI from all platforms, kind of doubled down initially. So I guess, a couple of thoughts that I have on this. One is just that a general frustration that I have is that DEI has come to be just an undefined idea in a lot of ways. And this is something we cross a lot in higher ed. It's been certainly a touch point a lot. And it's been very unclear just in general, exactly what policies are that are targeted as part of DEI. Some of it seems like affirmative action. Some of it seems like affirmative action stuff that hasn't been how affirmative action's worked in 40 years. And I think that's, kind of as somebody who, both at the state and federal level is now being expected to comply in certain ways with, purging DEI, I'm a little unclear what it even is. And frankly,
I think that's a fair argument.
And I think that's part of why, whatever happened here, whether it was an honest mistake or not, certainly one read on it is that, maybe it's the administration's position that, we're not going to cite anybody for, any woman or any black person or, what have you. It may well have been a mistake, but it is a major frustration for me, because I think there are, a variety of things that fall under the heading of DEI that range from, things that probably nobody would find objectionable down to things that lots of people would find objectionable, And so, so much of this, I guess I'm just a stickler for this. Maybe it's because I'm an academic, and maybe part of it is just that, I don't know, given that I'm expected to comply with this stuff, it's really unclear what it is that they're after a lot of the time.
This episode is brought to you by Prime Video. In the small town of Holland, Michigan, nothing is ever what it seems. Behind the tulip festivals and pretty houses lay dark secrets that threaten to tear a marriage apart. Nicole Kidman stars in this darkly twisted thriller about a wife and mother whose quest to uncover her husband's secrets may get her more than she bargained for. Holland, streaming on Prime Video March 27th.
I can say to my new Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra, hey, find a keto-friendly restaurant nearby and text it to Beth and Steve. And it does, without me lifting a finger. So I can get in more squats anywhere I can. 1, 2, 3.
Will that be cash or credit?
Credit. 4.
Galaxy S25 Ultra, the AI companion that does the heavy lifting so you can do you. Get yours at Samsung.com. Compatible with select apps. Requires Google Gemini account. Results may vary based on input. Check responses for accuracy.
To me, as a conservative, this is frustrating because I think we could do you could do a really good job. I could do a really good job defining what it is that we're after and what it is that we're trying to take down and wipe out. And it's often been in my criticism for those who listen that if you want to replace the sort of DEI sort of woke agenda that we've got, you need to replace it with something. And my preference would be replace it with something that is sort of patriotic, honoring of individual achievement, right? Mm-hmm. To me, that one of the arguments that conservatives had with DEI, and I think is completely a valid argument, is that it's sort of a cover, a cloak, or a set of a leftist, perhaps even Marxist ideology, right? That's sort of somehow infused into our education, in terms of into our corporate governance, and in all these places. And what it says is that we look at people as members of groups rather than as individuals. And to me, that has always been the antithesis of what conservatism, the American ideal, Martin Luther King's statement has been, right? That we don't judge people by the color of their skin, by the content of character. And we've had this, I think, slippage, right, of that idea. And so to me, it's, when you get into discussion of, well, these groups are oppressed and less oppressed and they're more intersection, that sort of thing, that's the problematic part of DEI. And the word problematic I hate because that's been sort of co-opted in that whole world.
I was going to say, you sound real woke.
I know, exactly. But that to me is what is a real problem. When you're hiring someone for a job and you say, well, we'd like to know how your race has affected you, or we'd like to hear your statement on diversity or something. My response is, no, that's none of the employer's damn business. And listen, we've struggled mightily to overcome those sort of prejudices, and that we look at people as just members of groups and boxes to be checked rather than as individuals. So that's my take, and that's all the reason why I say, listen, to me, the opposite of DEI and the way that we ought to approach, the question of race and perhaps inclusion. Maybe I'd settle for that, right? I'm okay with the I think. The D and the E are probably the more troubling. The D being because there's an assumption. This goes back to the Michigan affirmative action case, that diversity is somehow some sort of a constitutional value. I don't think it is. I think diversity can be great, but it doesn't trump the other parts of the Constitution that says, that doesn't just allow discrimination on the basis of race. The E is a problem just because of all those damn little cartoons of, equity's the guy with the two people and they both have the same, or equality is the same size ladder, and equity is one person getting the bigger ladder because they're shorter and so forth. To me, I think that's problematic, because what it doesn't tell you is who's, somebody's got to pay for the bigger ladder. And I'm not sure that to me, it's often the bigger ladder goes to the person with the bigger political voice. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, then that's fine.
No, I know the I like the cartoon, but
yeah, and there's different variations, right?
Right.
But But what I'm saying is equality tends to mean equality of opportunity. Equity tends to mean equality of outcome. And I think a lot of people take umbrage with that. That's not the society we ought to be. And look, you can disagree, but the idea of equality of outcome is something that is more of the left, right?
Sure.
But the I'm all for. And I think the way you get to the I is recognizing great Americans like Jackie Robinson, like the Navajo Code Talkers, like even B. Arthur. And it's weird. I probably would not have said B. Arthur when someone would say name 3 great Americans. B. Arthur wouldn't be one of my top 3. But
you could just think of the look she would be shooting you right now.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. But that's I think that's what I think conservatives ought to offer is that alternative that we celebrate people not based on their genetic makeup, but on what they've done, for them, for their country, themselves, for the world, that sort of thing.
We hope you enjoyed this preview of our supporters exclusive midweek show. If you'd like to hear the rest of the episode, we hope you'll consider becoming a supporter. Supporters get ad-free access to all of our shows, membership in our Politics Guys Discord group where you can join in on the conversation, and other benefits at different levels of support. To become a supporter, go to patreon.com/politicsguys. You can also support us through Venmo or @politicsguys or through PayPal. You'll find all of our support links in the show notes as well as at politicsguys.com/support. And if you'd like to get the midweek show, but you're not in a position to become a financial supporter, that's not a problem. Just send me an email at mike@politicsguys.com, and I'll be happy to get that set up for you.
This podcast is part of the Democracy Group,